Every once in a while, my curiosity really tends to get the better of me, and I buy a knife that I have absolutely zero use for. I don't live anywhere near the ocean. It's about a 6 hour drive to get to the ocean from where I live. And despite all of that, I really wanted to check out this titanium dive knife. Even though I could not in any way put it in its actual application, I still thought it would be fun to check out and maybe see how it would do in an everyday carry role as a bit of an experiment. And that's exactly what I did. I wanted to see how this 6AL4V titanium blade would hold up to standard utility tasks as well as some fishing tasks. And as a result, this review will be extremely non-informative to anyone looking to use it as an actual dive knife. So to them, I'm sorry, this is not going to be the video for you. I sadly don't have any data for how this will perform as a dive knife. Checking around the internet, however, I've seen nothing but positive reviews about how well this thing works in that role. So, if you're looking for that information, go check out those videos, those reviews on the forums. They'll have much more for you than I will. What I can tell you is I have put this into the role of an everyday carry fixed blade as well as a fishing knife, and I've been pretty, satisfied with it, all things considered. Now, that's being said, looking at the specs online, I don't think the specs are accurate, because if I look at the specs, it says it has a 5.5-inch handle and a 4.5-inch blade. So we're going to measure that whenever we get to those sections of the video to see how accurate that is. But yeah, we're going to look at this TUSA dive knife and talk about how well it, and by proxy, titanium, performs as an everyday carry blade material. I like to show the packaging, so here's how you'll get the knife. You can see TUSA diver's knife. Not much on the side there. I have it in metallic red. They also make it in a nice gray handled version, and it is made in Taiwan. And so yeah, that's the packaging. Nothing special. I also should note that you can get this knife in a 420J2 blade for less money. This titanium version is about $103. The 420J2 version is, I think, $65. And you can get either version in this sharp tip version or a blunted tip version. I like this one, obviously, for utility. But if you're actually diving with it, you may prefer the blunt tip version for prying open, whatever. So, yeah. Let's look at the sheath. Sheath is plastic, as one can expect from a dive knife. We do have our drainage hole at the bottom there, and the knife clicks into the sheath extremely well. It's not going to come out. You got to depress that button in order to release the blade, and the blade can go in either way, so it is a fully ambidextrous sheath, which, that's nice. Always nice to see lefty support. It obviously won't have a belt attachment. It is meant to be attached to your forearm, your bicep, maybe lower down on your calf, something like that. These rubber straps are not nearly large enough to accommodate, I'd say, 90% of people's thighs. I certainly couldn't get it around mine, which is a shame. I was going to try to carry it on my right thigh. It doesn't work for that. The straps aren't big enough for that. But it does comfortably fit around the calf or the bicep. So you can kind of use this as a cool boot knife if you're going to carry this as an EDC blade. It's kind of nice. I will say the sheath feels sturdy. It's a nice quality sheath. I enjoy it. I like it. I do wish there was some way to rig a more conventional carry method to it, but that's not meant for that. I can't criticize it when I'm taking it out of its intended role. I also do love how it, beautifully matches the color of the handle. It's a very attractive red and black. I like that. Set the sheath aside for a second, and let's talk about the knife itself. So yeah, here we are. In fact, let's get a little closer so you can see things in a little more detail. So it says this is a 4.5-inch blade. Let's see if that's true. No, they're telling the truth. It is a 4.5-inch blade, and it looks like a 5-inch handle to me. So 9.5 inches overall, not 10 inches overall. Measurements were definitely a little bit off. I knew something didn't seem right about that. But yeah, 4.5-inch blade, in this case made out of 6AL4V titanium. I was really curious to see how well titanium would perform for an everyday carry blade material, because I have a lot of use on tons of different steels. carbon steel, stainless steels, high end, low end, but I'd never used a titanium knife. And I also want to do a similar test with a ceramic bladed knife. So you'll probably see a review on something like that in the future. What I can tell you is keep your expectations very realistic. Titanium is not nearly as hard as steel, and as a result, it's not going to hold an edge as well as steel. I put this through all the typical EDC tasks, you know, slicing up food, opening up bubble mailers and clamshell packaging, and, you know, miscellaneous random cutting tasks my day presented me with. And then to really test the edge retention, I broke down a bunch of cardboard with it. I can tell you it's not the most amazing slicer. It gets the job done, but it is a somewhat thick stock, and it's a very abrupt saber grind. Now, I will say that actual cutting edge itself, that secondary bevel, is very well done. It's not too steep, so it's a decent slicer despite that thickness and the abruptness of the grind, but it's obviously not going to perform as well as a blade dedicated to that kind of work. If you compare this to something like a Spyderco Tenacious, the Spyderco will slice much more effectively than this, but it got the job done. It did work. It didn't bind up. That being said, did I dull the titanium blade when cardboard cutting? Absolutely. Absolutely. I put it through the 75 cardboard cut test. I tend to subject my medium to lower quality steel blades to. And if you're not familiar, whenever I'm testing knives, if a knife is claiming to use a higher end steel, I will put it through 150 cuts through medium thickness cardboard and then see if it's still able to slice paper by the end of it. If it's claiming to be a lower quality steel, I'll put it through 75 cuts through cardboard and do the same test. This did go through 75 cuts through cardboard, and it could kind of sort of slice paper, but not super cleanly. It was tearing, it was catching, it was snagging a lot. And again, that's to be expected from a very soft blade material like this. All of that said, it touched up very, very easily on some ceramic rods. Sharpening titanium is definitely a different feel to sharpening steel. It's almost a little bit gummy. And I did have to take, you know, a little bit more care to make sure I didn't have a rolled edge or a burr when I was done, but it still sharpened up very easily and came back to a hair shaving sharp edge without too much effort. Out of box, it was decently sharp, not impressively sharp in my opinion. Okay, so after all that was done though, I decided let's test this a little bit more. How would this work as a fishing knife? You know, it's obviously a bit thick to be an ideal fillet knife, although I did use it as such, but that serrated portion on the back as well as that little hook, I was thinking maybe that'll be great for fishing line. And then, you know, I could obviously clean the fish with it as well. If you want a one-size-fits-all fishing knife, you don't want to carry one just for the line and one just to fillet with. You just want something that can do it all. Does this work in that role? My answer is actually yes. It actually does work in that role. It actually does work as a one-stop fishing blade. Is it ideal? No, because like I said, it's a little thicker than I would prefer for a knife to clean fish with. But I did use this to clean 5 largemouth bass and 2 catfish, and it did just fine. Okay, that tip is extremely sharp and extremely fine, so you'll want to be careful with it. We obviously had that serrated back portion, but using the blade carefully, I was able to clean the fish quite effectively with it, and it still had its paper cutting, hair shaving edge when it was done, because cleaning fish is not a super harsh use of a blade. It doesn't dull a blade nearly as quickly as, say, skinning game. You know, if I was skinning a deer with this, I would probably have to sharpen this several times before I was done with it. Cleaning fish, though, it did perfectly fine. And the benefits of being a titanium blade is it's not going to rust on you. You can take this out on the water, fresh or salt water, and never have to worry about corrosion. It's just not going to happen. So you can throw this in your tackle box and leave it there and never really have to worry about it all too much until it's eventually time to sharpen it. Okay, that hook on the back there does not work very well. Mine is just not super sharp. Again, you can see how thick it is on the blade stock. I didn't find it to be very useful for cutting fishing line. I would pull and pull and pull and pull and pull, and it would really just cut into my hand. The fishing line would just cut into my hands as I was trying to cut it with that hook. Luckily, that serrated section back there made very short work of it. And I do like those serrations. They're, you know, very very easy to sharpen because we have the same size crescent cuts all throughout. And it's very easy to get the proper size ceramic rods into those to sharpen those up. I have not had to sharpen mine up yet, though. They're still nice and sharp. So overall, the blade, I'd say, performs low to medium acceptability as an everyday carry blade. Definitely on the medium acceptability end of a fishing knife. I do like it for that. And that's probably how I'll use this in the future, is as a one-stop fishing knife. Okay, the handle, we already measured it. It's made out of the same plastic as the sheath, as well as these nice rubber grips. It's a little small. It's a little bit small, but it is comfortable in the hand. It is a nice high traction. The knife is extremely light. Okay, 3.8 ounces outside of the sheath, 8.2 in the sheath. So extremely carryable, extremely lightweight. I do like the handle. I wear medium-sized gloves and I have just enough room. If you have larger hands, you're going to run out of room on this knife, which is sad, but it's just what the situation is, being realistic. By the way, they call this a drop point blade on their website. That is definitely a clip point. Okay, minor annoyance, but yeah, that's definitely a clipped point. You can see it as a full tang. That titanium runs all the way through, which, interestingly enough, that would make a good less lethal impact device. You connect that to someone's temple, it's definitely still going to be lethal. But you jam that in someone's neck, their thigh, their bicep, it's going to do a lot of damage. It's going to hurt like hell, but it's not going to scar them for life. Could you use this as a defense blade? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mentioned you can like wrap this around your calf, carry it like kind of like a boot knife. That is a super penetrative tip. Okay, very, very penetrative tip. Good sharp edge, or very easy to put a sharp edge on it. You get a good grip on it. You have that less lethal impact option. This would make a great defense blade. Absolutely. You might want to go for the gray handled version so it stands out less in that for that particular function. But yeah, you could use this pointed tip version as a defense knife. 100%. Now, as a EDC fixed blade, as a fishing knife, there is some competition for it. As a dive knife, I don't really have anything I can roll in here to show you to compete for that function. However, I will roll in some knives I have that I think can compete with it for the role of an EDC fixed blade, a fishing fixed blade, or a self-defense fixed blade. Starting with one that I think actually has a pretty strong resemblance to the knife, or at least what I thought the TUSA resembled, which is a SOG Seal Pup. Seal Pup is a little bit bigger overall, but these blades to me resemble each other. Maybe that's just me. We obviously don't have this, kind of signature SOG back swedge as far as that design is shaped. We have the serrated section instead, but the shape of the clipped points is very similar. The finishing on the blade is somewhat similar, which, by the way, this bead blasted titanium blade can be a small pain in the ass to clean blood off of. I had to really work to get the blood off of it. But you can see the overall size is pretty close. Now, as a dive knife, the SOG would suck because this AUS 8 would rust out pretty much immediately in salt water. As a defense blade, I would prefer the SOG. It's just got a little bit more reach. It's got an even sharper tip. We don't have that less than lethal impact option, but I like the bigger grip on it. As a everyday carry blade, I'm equally happy with either one. I probably prefer the TUSA just slightly because it's a little more compact and it's significantly lighter. So very interesting stuff. As a fishing knife, I'd also prefer the TUSA. I don't like the idea of getting this AUS 8 bloody, especially with this finish, because again, this finish would be a pain to clean the blood out of, and AUS 8 will rust like a son of a gun. So, yeah. How about this one? This is the Mora 2000. This is my one knife fits all option, 12C27 steel. I've used this as a camp knife, an EDC knife, a fishing knife. It works great. 12C27 is damn rust resistant. It does a very good job of, filling all those different tasks. Price is significantly lower. Again, $103 for this. Seal Pups, I think, are hovering around $55 or $60 at the moment. This is about $35 to $40 at the moment, so quite a bit cheaper than the titanium version. And if you go for the 420 stainless version, I just wouldn't bother with it at all outside of a dive knife. I would just go for something else. So, not even going to really talk about that version too much because 420 J2 is just not a very impressive steel. And Honestly, I don't even like the idea of using it for a diving knife because 420J2, while rust resistant, is still going to rust on you if exposed to salt water. Here's another option. This is the Mora Companion, or yeah, the Companion. Sorry, the names get confusing. This one's still dirty and still nasty from cleaning fish with. 12C27 steel, Swedish made, super affordable, like 15 bucks, comfortable as hell, very capable as an EDC blade, very capable as a camp blade, very capable as a fishing blade. Okay, way more affordable than the TUSA, right about the same size. It's worth mentioning. And the last EDC fixed blade I'm going to roll in here, or at least a fixed blade I use for EDC, is the Buck 192. Okay, this one happens to be a commemorative state rally edition. 428C steel, their synthetic wood handle, very, very comfortable in the hand. Designed as a hunting knife, very, very different, but I use it in the same role as an EDC fixed blade. So I'm rolling it in here kind of for size comparison and just to show you the variety of different fixed blades you can get to fill that everyday carry role. Again, that's not what this knife is meant to be. This knife is meant to be a dive knife. And based on everything I've seen online, it works very, very well in that role. But I think it also makes for a pretty good fishing knife and a decent everyday carry knife. And it was a fun experiment. It was super fun to see how well titanium would hold up to everyday carry usage. Will I continue to carry it? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not in any way disappointed with it. I'm still happy I spent the $103 for it. I think it's attractive. I think it's cool. I think it's a neat kind of novelty. And a buddy of mine who does actually go diving is picking one up for himself. He now wants one for whenever he goes out and visits family in Florida, in California. And yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I think it's pretty neat. It inspired him to buy one, and I'm super happy with it. So hope you guys have enjoyed this very unorthodox review, and I'll see you next time.